Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear viewers. Welcome to this 10th session of Self-Improvement to the Quran series. Today, the passage that we are going to study is about to be displayed before your screens. So these are verses 20 to 25 from the 30th surah, which is Surah Al-Rum. And they start off, I'm just going to read the text and translation before you. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ أَنْ خَلَقَكُم مِّن تُرَابٍ ثُمَّ إِذَا أَنْتُمْ بَشَرٌ تَنْتَشِرُونَ. So these verses, as you will see the pattern, they often begin with these repetitive words, وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ, which mean, of course, that amongst the signs of God, amongst His signs regarding the fact that He's our Creator, He is one, He is going to call us to account. So this is a general it's like a survey which is given to human beings, and it is like a reminder to them that if they want signs, then they have plenty of them. All that they need to do is look around them. So the first verse says, وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ أَنْ خَلَقَكُم مِّن تُرَابٍ ثُمَّ إِذَا أَنْتُمْ بَشَرٌ تَنْتَشِرُونَ. And from among His signs is this also, that He has created you from clay. Then before long you grow into human beings and spread out in the land. So again, this is one of the miracles of God's creation, that He started to create humankind from earth, from clay, and then slowly gave it the ability to procreate and reproduce. And from then onwards, it perfected the forms of human beings, and then blew His Spirit, and finally chose one of the pairs to be Adam and Eve. And from then He started mankind. So mankind is like a human family. Mankind is like a global family, and we are all part of that family. And this is a beautiful reminder of the fact that this is God's sign that He has created all of us from the same family. He started creating us from clay, and then ultimately, when human beings came into existence, they forgot that they are part of one human family, and they started to quarrel with themselves. They started to regard each other as superior. They started to turn against one another. But the Quran and the Almighty here is reminding us that look where your origin was from. You started in a way that all of you had begun from Adam and Eve. So there is no question of anyone having a superior race, anyone having any superiority regarding anything. So we have to be considerate regarding these things. And then وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ أَنْ خَلَقَ لَكُم مِّنْ أَنفُسِكُمْ أَزْوَاجًا لِتَسْكُنُوا إِلَيْهَا وَجَعَلَ بَيْنَكُمْ مَوَدَّةً وَرَحْمَةً إِنَّ فِي ذَلِكَ لَآيَاتٍ لِقَوْمٍ يَتَفَكَّرُونَ. And from among His signs is also that He has made your pairs from your own species, so that you can receive comfort for them, and has created love and affection between you. So here the tremendous impact which the institution of family has on our lives is indicated. And it is said that men and women, they have natural affiliation, natural affinity, natural attraction for one another. And spouses are created from the same species. They belong to the same species, which first of all also gives us this very important message that amongst the spouses, no one should regard one another to be superior to the other. So all species, because of the fact that they are human beings, so if they have been divided into male and female, then absolutely no cause for regarding any one of them superior to the other. And the second thing which the Quran tells us is that they come together, لِتَسْكُنُوا إِلَيْهَا, so that they can receive mutual assurance, comfort from one another. In other words, one of the greatest boons of family life is to provide comfort to the spouse, to be an assurance to the spouse, to provide a life which is like heaven on earth. But alas, we do stumble in these affairs, and alas, we are at times at loss how to go about our married life. But then these blemishes that occur from us, they make us stumble. Every time that we stumble, we have to get up from that fall and remind us that basically this relationship of marriage between a man and a woman is a great blessing. And The next thing which is mentioned, of course, is again something which is very natural. The Quran says, وَجَعَلَ بَيْنَكُمْ مَوَدَّةً وَرَحْمَةً. And He has created love and affection between you. So men and women, the male and the female gender, they have this natural love and affection for one another. And not only this love and affection, as the previous part of this verse says, they receive assurance and comfort from one another. And also the fact that this assurance and comfort and this love and affection, this brings about the family which Quran wants to bring about, and especially for the next generation, for the children, and for the next in kin, because it is essential that for life to develop and to prosper in the right way, that it has to originate from a family which is tightly knit. And this tightly knit family can only result when the spouses, when the parents, they are so close to one another. And so you see, there is a natural vacuum between these two genders. There are some things which one has and which the other doesn't have. And when they come together, they complement one another. And not only do they complement one another, in a lot of things, this complementary relationship becomes supplementary as well. But we do have to realize that as far as coming together is concerned, it has to be understood as a companionship between the two. It should not in any way boil down to dictatorship, which we often see that one of the spouses gets dominant over the other. And more often than not, living in a patriarchal society, it is the male or the husband who is dominating his wife. And when this dominance, it gets the better of her, it makes her frustrated. It makes her feel as if she has no personality of her own. And it is here that we have to realize that the Almighty has endowed equal privacy to all genders, to both the spouses. They have their own space in which they should live, in which they should allow independence to the other, and while at the same time also maintaining that beautiful friendship bond, which is essential. And the height of this friendship bond is to become soulmates of one another. Soulmates, of course, as the word shows, is something of a big blessing. It's like a boon that we can achieve in family life. And then these verses continue with other signs, and they go on to say, وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ خَلْقُ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضَ وَاخْتِلَافِ أَلْسِنَتِكُمْ وَأَلْوَانِكُمْ إِنَّ فِي ذَلِكَ لَآيَاتٍ لِلْعَالَمِينَ. So the next signs which are mentioned are that there certainly are great signs in this for those who reflect the creation of the heavens and the earth, and the diversity in your languages and colors is also from among His signs. So the creation of the heavens and the earth, the diversity in the tongues that we speak, and the colors of our skin, the tinge of our skin, the variety in them, the diversity in them, it all shows that how all-embracing is the creativity of the Almighty. So this creativity is what is pointed to, that He has created the heavens and the earth in such a profound proportion, with such might, with such precision, that systems they are correct to the second, in fact to the nanosecond, and everything has a set order, has a set pattern. There is hugeness in this vast and unfathomable universe. There is tremendous order. There is mercy reflected in it. There is providence of God reflected in it. And it gives us the impression of not only that the Creator is someone who has tremendous power and strength, but at the same time who has a lot of wisdom, mercy, and affection for His creatures. And then, of course, it's so mind-boggling to see that there are so many thousands of languages that all of us speak. And it's not a problem for people who share the same language to understand each other. This in itself is a huge miracle. It's something which bespeaks of the fact that someone who has created mankind and made it connected to one another such that many of them speak the same tongue. And not only they speak the same tongue, they understand one another. And of course, then the diversity of our skin color. So the Quran calls this as the signs of God. These are signs which tell us that there is a Creator who has gone to a great distance, who has taken great pains, who has created human beings in a very painstaking way. And when someone does so, there has to be a purpose in this. And this purpose, of course, is that with privileges, with blessings, comes accountability. And so, therefore, we must not forget that there is going to be a day of accountability. And then it further says, وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ مَنَامُكُمْ بِاللَّيْلِ وَالنَّهَارِ وَابْتِغَاؤُكُمْ مِنْ فَضْلِهِ إِنَّ فِي ذَلِكَ لَآيَاتٍ لِقَوْمٍ يَسْمَعُونَ. In a similar way, your sleeping by night and day and finding his bounty are also among his signs. Surely there are many signs in this for people who listen from the ears of their hearts. So you see, once again, another phenomenon which is pointed out is this coming of day and night. Every day, this is a rehearsal of the day of judgment. We sleep only to get up after a deep sleep and think that we had just slept. And the Quran says, in a very similar way, when you will be put to death, you will be put to sleep in the land of Barzakh. And when you will be woken on the day of judgment, you will realize that you had just slept. So this rehearsal of sleeping at night and getting up in the morning is a beautiful rehearsal to remind us of the day of judgment. And not only that, it also reminds us that how peaceful and how comfort-giving this phenomena of sleep is. Without sleeping, we are so tired during the day. Without this rest at night, we are not able to conduct our activities during the day. So this sleep is a huge benefit. It's a huge blessing. And we tend to take it for granted and we forget it. We have to realize that sleep in itself is a great blessing of the Almighty. And as these verses say, that there are great signs for this, for people who hear. And this, of course, means that they are listening from the ears of their hearts. وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ يُرِيكُمُ الْبَرْقَ خَوْفًا وَطَمَعًا وَيُنَزِّلُ مِنَ السَّمَاءِ مَاءً فَيُحْيِي بِهِ الْأَرْضَ بَعْدَ مَوْتِهَا إِنَّ فِي ذَلِكَ لَآيَاتٍ لِقَوْمٍ يَعْقِلُونَ. And from among his signs is also that he shows you flashes of lightning which produce fear also and hope as well, and rains down water from the heavens. Then he revives the land from it after it dies. Surely there are many signs in this for those who use their intellect. Again, it tells us that look how this thunder and lightning and these flashes of lightning, they produce fear and hope as well. Fear for the fact that yes, they might strike someone, and of course produce hope that they'll bring rain and therefore end the drought that the earth might be facing. And that is precisely what is mentioned in the next part. وَيُنَزِّلُ مِنَ السَّمَاءِ مَاءً. So the thunder and the lightning is accompanied by rain at times, and this revives the dead piece of land. And at a number of occasions in the Quran, we find this comparison being given that just as this earth dies away and is revived once the rain is pounded on the earth, in a very similar way, we will be coming out of this earth after we die. This earth is a place which houses our bodies, and once again we are going to come out of our graves, be given a new form, and then present ourselves before the Almighty. And finally it is said, وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ أَن تَقُومَ السَّمَاءُ وَالْأَرْضُ بِأَمْرِهِ ثُمَّ إِذَا دَعَاكُمْ دَعْوَةً مِنَ الْأَرْضِ إِذَا أَنْتُمْ تَخْرُجُونَ. And from among his signs is also that the heavens and the earth exist because of his command. Then when only once he will summon you to come out from the earth, you will come out as soon as you hear it. So these heavens and the earth, they might seem very strong and powerful, but they are intact because of God's command. They exist because of God's command. Once he gives this command to have them decimated and destroyed, and once he commands people to come out of their graves, it would be just a single shout, and people would emerge from their graves. إِذَا أَنْتُمْ تَخْرُجُونَ. So therefore, don't forget that you're going to once again face the Almighty and face his accountability. So with these verses, we come to an end to this study of this passage from the Quran. And now if you have any questions, please put them up.
Assalamualaikum, Dr. Shehzad and participant. Thank you for these great reminders for today. For questions today, we have Yasin Fahad. You may have your question now.
Assalamualaikum, Dr. Shehzad. I have a question about hunting with hunting animals. So, like I was going through that verse where Allah said that you can use a hunting animal, for example, dogs, to hunt, and you say Bismillah before you let them go. And then when they catch the prey and keep it for you, it's halal for you and you can eat it. My question is, do you still need to do the zabiha for that animal? Like, what if it is dead before you reach that animal once you're
So you
hunting?
don't need to slaughter that, because we have been told by the Quran that if the hunting dog, which is trained, if he has not eaten from that animal for himself, and he has preserved it for the master, then his own teeth will act as that knife. And you have already said Bismillah, Allahu Akbar. So if the animal is dead, you can consume it as a halal, as something which is halal. However, if that hunting animal has consumed part of that prey for his own self, then we are not allowed to eat. But we know that these animals are trained not to eat for themselves. They're just meant to catch the prey and make it. They just debilitate it. They just make that prey fall down, and either it dies or it is still there when people come in and catch it. In which case, then they can of course slaughter it and continue.
So, Dr. Shehzad, if it dies before you reach it, and although everything has been done, Bismillah and everything, but the blood will not be drained out of that animal then, right?
No, you see, it would have been drained out, because you see what the hunting prey, the dog usually are used for this purpose. When they catch that animal, they of course they don't catch it. Their incisors, they tear apart their prey. And when they tear apart the prey, the blood starts to ooze out. And the animal will only die once that oozing out has finished. However, if the animal is alive and you are able to reach that animal and he's still in that shape, then you can further slaughter it so that you facilitate the blood to come out. Otherwise, if the animal dies, merely the fact that the trained animal has torn apart the prey is like a knife or a bullet or anything else acting on that animal and killing it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Nashaba Wasim, you may have your question now.
Assalamu alaikum, sir. Sir, yesterday actually I'm listening Dr. Sajid Hamid lecture, and I just explained in Urdu what he said. Like he said, like नेकी और बदी की जजा और सजा आखिरत में मिलती है, खताओं और गलतियों की सजा दुनिया में मिलती है. I don't get the point. What does that mean?
This is best if you ask him again, because you might not have understood him correctly, or there could be a context to what he says. So it's best if you ask him again.
Actually, it's recorded.
You see, I cannot comment unless I can hear the whole thing that he has said. Otherwise, it would not be correct. So it's better if you ask him again, and maybe you can re-listen to what he has said. And if any question arises, then the best person to ask is the author himself or the speaker himself.
Actually, it's a recorded lecture. So I think I will post a question then there. Thank you.
Thank you, Nashaba. Dr. Sal, we have a written question. Did the Prophet Muhammad recite Durood Sharif and At-Tahiyyat in namaz? If not, then what did he recite? And can we recite anything else instead of Durood and At-Tahiyyat in namaz?
You see, we are not fully sure what he recited in his own prayer when he was sitting down in the Kaaba, because that has not been reported. However, when people or one of the companions started to pray in a way that he would say Allahu Salam or something similar, the Prophet corrected him and said, well, when you say Allahu Salam, it's just, instead of saying these words, what you should actually say is At-Tahiyyatu Lillahi wa. So the Prophet taught that companion what he should say, and then, of course, the prayer for Durood, which is, of course, something that we all do. So this is what he taught to other people. As far as he himself is concerned, we are not very sure what he said. Of course, he wouldn't have said the Durood because it is something for his own self. He might have altered it slightly. And as I've been saying, that whatever is to be said in this position of sitting down, which is the Qa'da, it has been left to our discretion. We can make any dua, we can glorify God, we can thank God. So this is a part of the prayer when we are sitting down, which has been left to our discretion. So we can read anything that comes to our mind. It could be in Arabic, it could be in our own language. So we have the leverage in this position and posture to see whatever we can.
All right, thank you. We have earlier also shared some resource in the group about this. Ruhi Rasul, you may have your question now.
Assalamu alaikum, sir.
Walaikum assalam.
Sir, in this passage, we have read about spouses and their brides, the couples that God creates for sukoon and love. So what we experience in our daily life is the issue of divorce, the career-oriented girls or brides. They don't allow their spouses to come near them for years and years sometimes for that sukoon or feeling of mawaddat or love, because they feel that their career is threatened. And this is shown even in our TV plays as well, that the boys or grooms are sacrificing their right even for years to win over the hearts of their brides. How to cater with such issues these days, with what we are facing?
So the best remedy to this is that before you marry someone, some things must be tabled out, some things must be discussed between the spouses, that this is how we are going to conduct our marriage, whether we are going to enter into our own professions, whether we are going to have children, or at what time we will have children, or there could be several other things which, of course, every person can think of. But because of the fact that we feel shy to discuss such things before marriage, that ultimately when these things do become a problem, and there's no solution to it, that we then start to discuss them, and I'm afraid then it's too late at that time. So the proper solution for this is that whenever the couples intend to get married, these things have to be settled before marriage. And once these things are settled before marriage, then there is no misconception, there is clarity. And if the nikah is not going to go forth because maybe the conditions of one spouse are not acceptable to the other, then of course that's not going to take place. And that's much better that it doesn't take place rather than it ends in divorce. So this is the thing that has to be taught to our younger generation, that now that professionalism is something which is very common. Both spouses are professionals, they are career oriented. So this of course creates it raises certain issues, it creates certain complexities. So they have to be talked about before marriage.
Okay, sir. Sir, sometimes the girls or boys, they don't even understand their own feelings before marriage. That how would those feelings would be, or how would that coming together, or the feelings of giving sukoon to the other person would be like. So they can't imagine that what it would be like, and they get frustrated, or they get extremely disturbed by that act.
Yes, I do understand. This happens. You cannot have a complete imagination of what's going to happen later on. But you see, you can always be given an idea. So if you are prepared for something, and if someone has taught you really well, and as I often say that marriage and nikah, and the whole institution of marriage is like a subject that has to be taught and understood at the university level. If it has been properly taught to the students, I don't think that this should happen. There are so many issues that have to be taught. Yes, ideally, we only would get to know our spouse and what's going to happen after marriage. But I still think a fair idea can be given if it is properly taught and discussed at the university level.
Sir, wouldn't it be embarrassing for the parents or mothers especially to talk on such topics before marriage?
We have to break this taboo. This is something that has to be. It's like a life. It's a life. I would not say a life-threatening situation, but it's a potential situation that can call for a breakup in the family. So they have to find ways and means to teach the next generation. It's not always have to be the parents who need to teach them. As I said, if these subjects are taught at the university level, so it's basically the teacher there who is going to teach them. And of course, parents can supplement their teaching, but primarily, if you have a good subject specialist, it is his or her job. And I think that this is being done in many parts of this world, and we should benefit from them.
Sir, sometimes these LGBTQ group people, they have some different kind of inclinations, and that also is disturbing the lives of youngsters these days. When they get married, they don't understand.
You see, as I said, when you teach this subject, when you teach these details, everything will be discussed in that university level course. The issue of the LGBT community, the issue of transgenders, the issue, there are so many things. So it's not just marriage which is going to be discussed. It would be a very vast subject which would cater for all these things. So I think you should try to, make more efforts that people are able to somehow introduce this subject at the university level, because everything that you just said is going to be part of that syllabus.
Thank you, Ruhi. Akram, you may have your question now.
Assalamu
Walaikum assalam.
My question is actually one of my sister asked me this question, that Allah said that righteous people will be joined with their counterparts in the hereafter. They both are righteous people. And then in Fusilat, Surah Fusilat in 31 32, Allah says, whatever your heart would desire will be provided to you. So now the question is that if some lady's husband dies and she ends up marrying another husband, and then assuming they both were, all three of them were righteous people, so who would she be joined with? That's the question.
I think she would be asked for her choice. I mean, let her choose.
But what about him? He's asked, I'm gonna have her there, and according to Ayat Fusilat, he would never create duplicate.
I'm sorry, I'm not being able to clearly hear you. Which verse of Fusilat are you citing?
Fusilat is
You read out that verse, please.
Down 31.
Well, I mean, all these things, they come with common sense exception. When you say that you get what you desire. So when something is related to the other person, then it's not that just your desire would be fulfilled unless the other person's desire is also the same. So this verse relates to desires which are needed for one's own self without bothering any other person. But when you talk about family, so it would obviously, boil down to the fact that your desire must match the desire of the other person. Otherwise, one of the desires would be not fulfilled. So this verse is talking about those things which would be given to you, and they would not infringe on the rights of others. But whenever other people come into picture, then of course this would automatically mean that the desire of both would be taken into account.
I brought this up to her, but it didn't satisfy her. Her question was that assuming all three of them were righteous people, so who would she be joined with? You are saying that.
I just replied to you that they'll be joined to one who both of whom agree. She would have a choice, and the rest of the two would also have a choice. So whoever, the choice of the two matches, whichever of the two matches would have the same choice, they would be the people who would be joined together. And the third one it would not be against that their desire is not fulfilled, because, as I said, this desire, which is mentioned in the Quran, that you will get whatever you like, it's not an absolute thing. It relates to things in which other people's rights are not infringed. So whenever another person figures in your desire, then this verse automatically means that unless both have the same desire, you just cannot go on.
Thank you. Naveed Irfan, you may have your question now.
जी अस्सलाम वालेकुम।
वालेकुम अस्सलाम।
डॉक्टर साहब, हम ये दरूद इब्राहिम जो पढ़ते हैं, अल्लाहुम्मा सल्ली अला सय्यिदना मौलाना मुहम्मद व अला सल्ली अला, तो जो जिसमें हम कहते हैं कि इब्राहिम अलैहिस्सलाम और उनकी आल पर जैसे अल्लाह ने रहमत करी है, और वैसी ही रहमत जो है वो अल्लाह और अल्लाह के रसूल सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम और उनकी आल पर भी करे। तो जैसा कि सूरह बकरा में अल्लाह ताला ने फरमाया कि जब वो रहमत की बात हुई, तो अल्लाह ताला ने कहा कि मेरा वादा सिर्फ जालिमों के लिए नहीं है, और जब रिस्क की बात हुई तो आपने कहा कि रिस्क तो मैं सबको दूंगा यहाँ तो दुनिया में। तो यहाँ जो अल्लाह के रसूल सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम की जो आल की बात हो रही है, तो वो कौन है? उसको हम कैसे कनेक्ट करेंगे? जब हम वो दुआ को पढ़ रहे हैं, तो मतलब वो क्या फीलिंग आना चाहिए उस वक़्त?
The same feeling as would be regarding Ali Ibrahim. Ali Ibrahim is basically the progeny of Abraham, or their children or their descendants. So they occupy the same state. I mean, have a very special status. The progeny of Abraham, the Zuriyat of Abraham, they have a special status. So the Prophet is actually being told that he should pray that give the same amount of blessings as you gave the progeny of Abraham. And obviously, this exception is always there. La yanalu ahdi zalimin, which means that those among them who would be wrongdoers, they will not get those blessings. So they are an exception. And basically, the verse tells us that the way the progeny of Abraham is rewarded in this world, so therefore, please do the same for the progeny of Muhammad also.
जी, तो जैसा हमने उस आयत में समझा है कि वहाँ अल्लाह ताला ने तो वो जो मुराद है वो नबूवत के सिलसिले में थी और हिदायत के सिलसिले में थी, और अल्लाह के रसूल सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम के चूंकि कोई औलाद में बेटे नहीं है, तो क्या आपकी बेटियां से जो नस्ल होगी वो आल मुराद है या उम्मत मुराद है इसमें?
It refers to as his progeny, his descendants, people who are born from him and people who are following him. So you see, the word al is not just meant for children or their own progeny. It also refers to their followers. Like, for example, the Quran says Ali Fir'aun. So Ali Fir'aun doesn't mean just the sons and daughters or the children of Pharaoh. It means all those who followed him. So in a similar way, Ali Muhammad refers to his progeny as well as his followers. So both are included.
Bisma, you can go ahead with your questions.
Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Saleem. My question was that Islam seems to be a religion that is focused on person's discipline and how they discipline themselves and personal responsibility. And it seems that when we talk about depression or anxiety, it seems that if you were to take a cue from the religion, the best way is to discipline oneself by saying the prayers and following all the commandments of God. It seems that disciplining itself somehow makes the mind calmer and we're able to have a better state of mind. My question is, did the Prophet ever face anxiety and sadness, depression? And if he did, is there any quoted incident or how he handled it? Just so, when you're talking to people, you can kind of quote that or refer to that. Is there anything like that we can find in Hadith or in reference to the Quran?
So you see, what you will find in the Quran and Hadith is not depression on the part of the Prophet, but severe anxiety, and not in the negative sense, but being overburdening himself and being very conscientious that, well, people should accept faith. So he would go to great lengths in trying to convince people. He would take a lot of responsibility upon himself. So, and then when people would not accept faith, he would feel very worried for them. So I think the way that the Prophet went about and the way he has been mentioned so many times in the Quran, that he would fear for his people that if they don't accept faith or they don't accept God the way he should be accepted, then they'll become the firewood of hell and they'll face the wrath of hell of God. And this would really make him very, very sad and sorrowful. And so we find the Prophet being mentioned in the Quran as a human being who has all these emotions. But you see, when you talk of depression, suddenly clinical depression comes to our mind, which is treated by psychotherapists, and you have various drugs and medicines for those. I mean, that is something which we have no knowledge of in the times of Prophet, and I doubt whether he ever went through such a thing. And also, I don't think there was any such remedy. Yes, he would feel very worried. He would feel happy. He would feel extremely conscious of the fact that his responsibility is tremendous because on his shoulders lie the fate of so many people. So it was more of burdening himself with this task. So, and whenever he would feel a lot of consternation or fear or anything, we know from the Quran also and from Hadith that he would just stand up in the prayer, pray to the Almighty, make dua, and he would spend hours and hours in the tahajjud prayer, beseeching the Almighty, invoking the Almighty that please help him out, etc., etc. So his way of combating all these difficult circumstances was the night prayer, was the prostration itself, and was connecting to God through remembering Him by various means. As we have come to know, but clinical depression or depression, that the way we talk about depression today, because it's often related to not just a low feeling, but also to the fact that you are treated medically for that. So we don't find anything like that regarding the Prophet. But yes, as I said, other forms of human emotion were very much there.
Thank you. Yasin Fahad, you may have your question, and this will be our last question of today.
Yeah. Dr. Saad, I have a question about the Islamic months. My understanding is that these months have always been like that ever since Allah started this world. Because the other day I also heard from Imam Saab that in the mosque that he said that all the holy books were revealed in Ramadan. Do we know about that?
No, I don't think we know about that. The rest of the books were revealed in Ramadan. There is nothing authentic. But yes, about the Quran, we know it was revealed in Ramadan. And yes, we also know from the Quran that these were the 12 months ever since the inception of mankind. Inna iddata shuhuri indallahi isna ashara. We have this verse in the Quran, which means that the count of months in the time, ever since God created them, was 12. So we know these they existed ever since. But the fact that other divine books were also revealed in Ramadan, there is nothing authentically reported in this regard.
So, but he actually mentioned even the dates. He said, like, I think he said one was revealed on 6th of Ramadan, the other was 12.
I don't think this is, you need to ask him where did he read these, because there is nothing authentically reported. I mean, these could be weak narratives.
Okay. And sir, just to follow up on what someone asked about the durood. So when you say progeny of Ibrahim alayhi salam, so Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was also progeny of Ibrahim alayhi salam, right? He was already covered there.
Right.
So
yes, you're right about that. He was part of that progeny. But the fact is that it's like, when you stress and emphasize something, it's like you're asking something for what had happened to your forefather. In spite of the fact that you're already covered because you are amongst his progeny as well. But you see, when you emphasize things and when you emphasize things which happened in the past, so you are referring to the past, well, the way he was, blessed, God give that same blessing to Muhammad and his progeny as well.
Thank you, Dr. Shehzad, for a wonderful session.